Hey, welcome back to Ready, Set, Sold. I'm your host, Bryan Vogt. And as I mentioned in the very first segment today, we talked about pre-approvals, and we've talked about these before, pre-approvals versus pre-qualifications. As you as a seller, and hopefully your agent already knows what the difference is. It's a huge difference. Now, the good news is that, yes, even though it's a pre-qualification, it can work. But boy, getting that pre-approval is really, really very, very important. And we just had some situations happen with sellers. Yes, the deal went through, but we were literally at the last minute, at the last period of time. The sellers had already, moved out, and now we're just waiting for that clear to close. Meaning is they actually have the money, and the buyers can bring the money to closing. With that, I wanted to bring in a top expert. So she's been doing this for a very long time. I don't know, at least 10 years, but probably longer than that. Joanna Theismann with Delmar Financial. Hi, Joanna.
Yes, thank you for having me. And it has been well over 10 years.
It has been well 10 years, but you started when you were 19, so that's okay. And this is one thing about Delmar Financial, and Joanna in particular. We've talked before numerous times, and the truth of the matter is if they have the right lender, how long does it really take to get a pre-approval versus a pre-qual? And maybe you can explain the difference between the two.
Well, sure. So, I mean, the difference is pretty drastic. So a pre-qualification is, in essence, just having a conversation with the client, and based on what they've told you, you can say, yeah, it sounds like you would qualify for the loan. A pre-approval is much more in-depth, and you're making a complete loan application. You're pulling their credit report, may verify, pay stubs and bank statements and tax returns, to where you can really get a good feel that they are fully qualified. At that point, too, we also run the application through our automated underwriting system, powered through Fannie Mae, which goes through the guidelines and makes sure that they're meeting that criteria for the true pre-approval. That can be done relatively quickly when you're dealing with a great lender and a great company such as Delmar Financial or any local lender. So typically you're going to be looking at being able to have that as quickly as 30 minutes. Sometimes
Wow.
It can take longer, if it's a more complex situation. If they're self-employed and you've got to analyze tax returns, it could take a couple hours if they get you documentation quickly. But that process really can happen in a very short period of time.
And I think that's the thing. And many times, whether you're a first-time home buyer, or maybe you're selling your home and now but it's been 10 years or 15 years, and again, the days of weeks and the traditional banks, nothing wrong with banks, but the period of time that it used to take was number one, nail biting, and number two, it just made it more difficult for people to make decisions. And now, again, when you're talking 30 minutes, and that's the part that we always want to try to emphasize, not only with buyers that we're working with, but basically educating the sellers that getting this pre-approval process done, even if they started off with a pre-qualification letter, as you said, it's just it sounds good. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. Many times it does, but the difference is, as you well know, is it also gives the buyer, what we find is confidence of making their decisions. Do you agree?
It certainly does. Yeah, I completely agree. The buyers have to be comfortable with their price range and with their payments and, down payment requirements and all those parts that go into it when they're making that offer. I mean, they have to feel comfortable with what they're going into, and it does help them give them more negotiating power and, when they're making that offer to the seller.
And it does. I mean, and really, real estate, and most sellers get this, and really, for the most part, I think buyers too, show me the money. I mean, it really comes down to that. Show me the money. Do I, that famous line in, I can't remember what movie that was.
Was that Jerry Maguire?
Jerry Maguire, very good. That was a great movie. But I mean, it really is. It's show me the money, and then let's talk about if there's negotiations, whatever. I mean, the market's been going pretty hot. There's not near as much negotiations as before. But but still, either way, whatever you have, when you have that money as a buyer and also the seller, it makes the process go so much smoother. And again, I can't stress enough that we get to work with a lot of lenders for various reasons or whatever. And what Joanna is talking about, and we're talking 30 minutes or 2 hours, is phenomenal. So I just want to give kudos to you guys, because even though it's a short period of time for some other lenders, it could be, quite frankly, business owners, things like that, it could be 3 or 4 or 5 days. And you're talking about potentially hours or maybe 24 hours at the worst. Of course, they have to give you the information. That's kind of a given. But don't you find that's even easier now? I mean, people have everything on their phones, right?
They do. And, technology is a wonderful tool. We ourselves have a wonderful phone app that we share with our clients and with our referral partners as well, where clients can actually upload their documentation directly to our loan system.
Wow.
From the ease of their phone. So, technology has come a long way, and it really helps simplify that process for the buyers.
Right, and that's it. Things are becoming more and more simpler and whatever. And I love your attitude too, Joanna, because if you're buying, and again, if you're selling your home, you're going to be a potential buyer buying something down the road. If you're not working with the lender, I was just talking to a lender, which will go nameless, and I just said, well, how's the process? And they said, oh my God, it just drags out and all the information you need. Look, if you've got that type of lender talking to you, talk to Joanna. I mean, you've got the wrong lender. It doesn't need to take that long. It's a very simple process for people who have the experience that can do the job. So
I was going to say, with that in mind, as long as everybody has the proper expectations going forward, yes, there's a lot of documentation. The process can be, a little cumbersome at times, but when you go in with the expectation of what's needed, it goes a lot smoother. So that definitely is helpful.
Right. There's a little bit more, but in the end, especially with technology, I think it kind of evens it out. Meaning is how fast you can get it. Yeah. Hey, you know what? Our time is running out. I've got to run here. Thank you so much, Joanna Theismann with Delmar Financial, for joining us today. Hey, get ready for the tip of the week in the next segment. Your host, Bryan Vogt, with Ready, Set, Sold.